chandeliers at the Hillcrest estate glittered like falling stars, casting a golden glow over polished marble floors and impossibly tall floral centerpieces. Elise Morgan stepped through the grand entryway and immediately wished she could turn back. The scent of expensive perfume, the hum of refined laughter, the echo of high heels against crystal tiles, all of it screamed one thing: she did not belong. Her pale lilac dress, sweet and simple with a scalloped neckline and soft chiffon skirt, had looked beautiful in her bedroom mirror under warm lamplight. But here, where diamonds glinted at every wrist and satin shimmered under spotlights, she felt like a child playing dress-up. She tugged at her clutch, trying to ignore the icy flickers of insecurity crawling up her spine. She found the seating chart pinned beside the ballroom entrance, gold ink looping across creamy cardstock. Elise Morgan, table 14, her stomach, dipped. Back corner, practically behind the ficus tree, of course. She moved quietly through the crowd, offering polite nods as she passed strangers laughing in tight, sequin circles. No one returned her smile. Everyone here seemed to know someone: college roommates, co-founders, friends from yacht clubs she couldn't even pronounce. Elise weaved her way to the far side of the ball room and spotted her table, hidden behind a towering arrangement of orchids and white roses. The chairs around it were half filled with similarly solitary guests who chatted stiffly over wine. She slid into her seat and reached for the glass of water, sipping to calm her nerves. The music swelled and laughter lifted, but Elise remained silent. She poked at the chilled salad on her plate and reminded herself to smile even if no one was looking. The bride glowed at the center of it all, surrounded by a constellation of silk and champagne flutes. The groom beamed beside her, dashing in his tux. Elise didn't know either of them well. Her old college roommate had married into this world, and she'd been invited out of courtesy. Elise had almost said no when her +1 canceled that morning, claiming food poisoning, but something inside her had whispered, "Go anyway." She was beginning to regret listening. Then the chair beside her scraped back. "Is this seat taken?" a voice asked, low and smooth and unexpectedly real in a room full of rehearsed charm. Elise glanced up and blinked. The man was striking, broad-shouldered, clean-cut in a midnight black tuxedo that looked tailor-made, not store-bought. His hair was dark and just tousled enough to look deliberate. His jawline was sharp, his cheekbones even sharper, and his eyes gray, maybe, or green, were curious, searching. She stammered, No, go ahead." He sat with fluid ease, adjusting his cufflinks before turning to her with a small, appreciative smile. "Thanks, I'm Gabriel, by the way, Elise," she replied, resisting the urge to tug her dress higher on her shoulders. "I was starting to think I'd be the only one exiled to the overflow table." Gabriel paused, then grinned. "Exiled? Huh, that makes us nobles in disguise." Elise laughed, hand honest. Sudden laugh that surprised even her. "That's a generous way to put it," she said, amusement slipping into her voice. "I just figured they didn't know where else to hide me. Well, they clearly put me here because I arrived late and refused to let the brides and set me up with her granddaughter." Gabriel leaned in slightly. "You might have saved me from a fate worse than this chicken." Elise smiled again, warmth creeping into her cheeks. Something about the way he spoke, the effortless way he saw through the performance of the evening, made her exhale a little. For the first time since arriving, she wasn't shrinking into herself. They clinked their glasses with a soft cheers, and Elise realized with a quiet flicker of disbelief that maybe, just maybe, she wasn't invisible after all. Elise wasn't sure what changed exactly. Maybe it was the way Gabriel leaned in just slightly when she spoke, as if her words mattered more than the orchestra swelling in the background. Or maybe it was the way his laughter wasn't forced, wasn't calculated like every other person she'd met that evening. It was genuine and rare. Whatever it was, by the end of the salad course, she found herself forgetting to shrink. "So what do you do, Elise of table 14? He asked, tilting his head curiously, the corners of his mouth still curved in amusement. She hesitated, eyes dropping to her water glass. "I'm a graphic designer. Freelance, mostly branding and small business stuff. Nothing glamorous." Gabriel raised an eyebrow. "Design is half the magic behind any company. People forget that. You make the invisible visible." The words stopped her. It wasn't praise exactly, but recognition. She felt her heart flutter with a confusing mix of surprise and disbelief. Most men she met assumed her work was clip art and Canva templates. This man saw more in 5 minutes than her X had in 5 years. And what about you? She asked, partly hoping the conversation would drift toward safer waters. He paused. Business. A little investing. I help companies grow. The answer was vague, intentionally vague. Something about the way he said it felt rehearsed, like someone who'd answered this question too many times and learned how to camouflage the truth. Elise caught the hesitation in his voice, the shift in his eyes. There was a story there, but she didn't press. Not yet. The music shifted, the lights dimmed. Waiters began clearing plates with the grace of dancers. The MC announced the first dance, and the bride and groom glided to the center of the floor under a canopy of fairy lights. Elise clasped her hands in her lap and watched quietly. Everyone else at the table leaned forward in admiration or whispered with indulgent glee. Elise just watched. Something about watching the people so obviously in love pulled at a thread inside her that hadn't been touched in a long time. You, okay? Gabriel's voice was low, like he already knew the answer, but wanted to hear it anyway. I'm just not really used to nights like this, she admitted, her voice soft. Fancy weddings, 5 forks, champagne toasts. It's not my usual Saturday. He studied her for a moment. What is your usual Saturday? Sketching in a coffee shop, probably, people watching, reading, petting strangers' dogs. Wishing I had one of my own. She gave a shy smile. You, Gabriel chuckled, avoiding nights like this, to be honest. But tonight feels different. Before she could respond, a woman in a dazzling emerald gown approached their table. Her heels clicked like gunshots on the marble. She leaned in with the confidence of someone who was used to being admired. Gabriel, there you are. She purred. You disappeared. He stood out of courtesy, offering a polite nod. Lydia, good to see you. Lydia's eyes swept over Elise like a scan, a subtle up-down laced with judgment. You're at table 14, she asked Elise, her tone light, but lined with venom. That's charming. Elise's stomach tightened. She gave a small, forced smile. It has the best view of the ficus. Gabriel stifled a laugh. Well, Lydia said, her smile faltering, you must excuse me. I promised the bride I'd circulate. Don't stay hidden along, Gabriel. She left a trail of perfume and frost in her wake. Gabriel sat down again, visibly exhaling. An ex? Elise asked, trying to sound casual, more like an expectation. He muttered, then turned back to her. Don't let her get to you. I'm not, she said, though the knot in her chest said otherwise. But the whispering started soon after. From a nearby table, the women in shimmering dresses leaned toward each other, eyes flicking toward Elise and Gabriel with poorly concealed curiosity. Elise caught the tail end of a sentence. She's nobody. Just look at that dress. Her cheeks burned. She reached for her glass, hands shaking slightly. Gabriel followed her gaze, his jaw tightening. Let's get out of here, he said. Suddenly, what? Come on, he said, standing. Just for a few minutes. There's a garden terrace. It's quieter. Elise hesitated, then nodded. He led her through the ballroom, past glittering guests and whispered speculation, out on the terrace. The night air was crisp and clean, free of perfume and pressure. Twinkle lights framed the stone archways and the city skyline blinked in the distance. Elise inhaled deeply. It's beautiful. Your handling is a lot better than I expected, Gabriel said, leaning against the railing beside her. I'm not sure I am, she admitted. I think I'm just pretending well. He turned to face her, eyes steady. You don't have to pretend around me. There was something in his voice that stopped her, a gentleness, but also something deeper, a kind of honesty rarely shown by people who had everything. And for the first time, Elise wondered not if he was out of her league but why a man like him felt so familiar. You know, she said slowly, for someone who just helps companies grow. People seem to know you very well, and seem very interested in who you're sitting with. Gabriel smiled, but there was a flicker of discomfort beneath it. Elise, he began, but then paused, shaking his head. Let's just say, people see what they want to see, and what do you want them to see? He looked at her, and for a moment, it felt like time slowed. Tonight, I just wanted someone real to talk to, and somehow, I found her. Elise's breath caught in her throat. She looked down, then back at him. I don't know what any of this is, or what it means, but I don't want to be a footnote at someone else's party. Gabriel stepped closer. You were never a footnote. Not to me. And as the wind lifted a few strands of her hair and the music drifted faintly from behind the terrace doors, Elise realized this wasn't just a night she'd remember, it was the night. Everything quietly began to change. The rest of the wedding passed like a dream she couldn't quite hold on to. Elise returned to her seat beside Gabriel, but she could feel that something had shifted. The garden terrace had been a kind of spell, a soft, silent world where only the two of them existed. But back in the ballroom, the harsh lights, the hum of conversation, and the weight of curious glances crashed down like cold water. Still, Gabriel stayed close. He laughed at her dry commentary when the best man's toast went awkwardly long. He filled her champagne glass with gentle care. When she made a face at the dessert, a tiny dollop of chocolate mousse, served on what looked like a polished stone, he leaned over and whispered, "Remind me to take you for real cake sometime." But not everyone was smiling. By the time the dancing began, Elise had noticed it. The eyes, whispers slithered from table to table like smoke. People didn't recognize her, and that made her suspicious. A woman who arrived alone, dressed like she shopped clearance racks, sitting next to Gabriel Stone, though no one had said his full name yet. Not out loud, but Elise had caught it. A server had murmured it to another just behind her chair. "Is that Gabriel Stone at 14? A man at the next table had glanced over and said, "That's him, right? The tech guy. Billionaire something," and then the name. Stone Holdings. G Stone Capital. GW Stone. Suddenly, the fog lifted. Gabriel Stone. He wasn't just someone. In business, he was the someone. One of the youngest self-made tech billionaires in the country. A man whose investments shaped industries. Elise remembered a magazine cover now. A brooding photo of him standing in front of a glass tower. The headline declaring, "Stone Cold Genius," inside the mind of the man reshaping the market. That man was the same person currently watching her across a sea of toll and taffeta like she was the only person that mattered. Her stomach flipped. She put her glass down carefully. He hadn't lied. Not really. But he'd left a lot unsaid. "Elise," he said, voice low as the music shifted to a slow ballad. "Would you dance with me?" She hesitated. "I don't know if that's a good idea," she said. Suddenly aware of every pair of eyes in the room, he extended his hand anyway. Let them watch. That shouldn't have worked. But it did. She let him lead her onto the dance floor. As his hand settled against her waist and their fingers intertwined, the world narrowed again. He moved with surprising ease, guiding her through the steps like he wasn't carrying the weight of a dozen empires on his shoulders. The room spun around them, whispers, camera phones, curious stares, but he didn't seem to notice. And slowly, Elise stopped noticing too. "You're quiet," he said softly. "You're not who I thought you were," she admitted. Gabriel's expression didn't change, but his grip on her hand tightened, just slightly. "I know," he said. "That's why I didn't want to tell you, because the second people know, everything changes." Elise searched his face. There was something there, fear, hope, regret. "Are you afraid of being seen?" she asked. "No," he replied. "I'm afraid of being seen the wrong way." The song ended. They stood there for a moment, surrounded by applause and spinning couples, suspended in a breath they hadn't released. And then it shattered. "Elise," the voice cut through the music like a blade. She turned and froze. Standing at the edge of the dance floor was someone she hadn't expected to see ever again. Ryan, her ex. The one who had bailed on being her wedding date. The one who said her art would never pay the bills. The one who had made her feel small enough to believe it. He stood there, smug and surprised, his hand clasped in that of a woman in a backless gown. "Lydia, of course, didn't expect to see you here," Ryan said, smirking. "You're with him." He gestured toward Gabriel with theatrical disbelief. "You to know each other." Gabriel didn't move, but the air around him grew sharper. Briefly, Elise replied, her voice steady. "Apparently, we have mutual poor taste in plus ones," Lydia scoffed, tugging Ryan's arm. "Don't waste your time, babe. Come on." But Ryan wasn't finished. "So this is your rebound," he said to Elise. "You know he's not going to actually stick around, right? These guys, rich guys, they always get bored." Gabriel's voice was calm, but laced with steel. "Do you enjoy embarrassing people, or is it just something you're naturally good at?" Ryan blinked. "Excuse me." Gabriel stepped forward. "She didn't need you to be impressed. She needed you to believe in her, and you failed." People had turned now. Faces watching, phones recording. Ryan's smirk wavered. Lydia huffed. "Let's go." They walked away. Gabriel turned to Elise. "Are you okay?" She nodded, but her eyes were glassy. "I didn't want to cry in front of him." "Then don't." Gabriel said gently, "Cry with me, or not at all. Your choice." And just like that, her breath hitched. Not because she was upset, but because something inside her had cracked wide open. Later, outside the ballroom under a canopy of stars, Gabriel offered to take her home. "Not because the night is over," he said, "but because you deserve to end it on your own terms." As the car pulled away from the Hillcrest estate, Elise looked out the window and whispered something to herself that surprised even her. He saw me. Not just her face, not her dress, not the fact that she was seated beside him. He saw her, and now she had to decide whether she was brave enough to let herself be truly seen. Rain tapped softly against the window of Elise's tiny apartment the next morning, as if the sky itself had taken pity on her whirlwind of thoughts. The hum of the city below filtered in through cracked blinds. On the table beside her was a single white tulip wrapped in brown paper, tied with a ribbon. No note, no card, just the flower dot it had been on her doorstep when she woke up. Elise stared at it, then at the ceiling, then at the text message blinking on her phone. Today was supposed to be just another wedding, but I met you instead. Lunch, GSHE. Reread it 3 times. She didn't know what scared her more, that Gabriel Stone meant it, or that she wanted to believe him. By noon, her inbox was filling with messages from coworkers. "Oh my God, is this you? Girl, you're trending. Gabriel Stone, are you kidding?" Elise clicked the link. There was grainy, zoomed-in video from someone's phone. Her dancing with Gabriel, laughing, his hand at her waist. The whispers from the night before had turned into headlines. Mystery girl steals spotlight with billionaire Gabriel Stone at Hillcrest wedding. Who is the woman at table 14? Her chest tightened, her email pinged again. This time it was from a blogger. "Hi Elise. We'd love to feature your love story with Gabriel on our lifestyle site shooting tomorrow. Just need a short interview." She slammed her laptop shut. This wasn't happening. This couldn't be happening. Her phone buzzed again. "Gabriel, if you need space, I understand. Just don't vanish without letting me explain." She didn't reply. Not yet. By sunset, she found herself walking in the park near her apartment. The wind cool on her skin, thoughts tangled like ivy in her chest. Her mind replayed everything: his eyes, his words, the way he had stood up for her. But now the whole world knew, and that changed everything. She turned a corner and stopped. Gabriel stood by a fountain, hands in his coat pockets, head down. No driver, no entourage, just him, alone. He looked up. Their eyes met. "You found me," she said. "I wasn't looking for you," he said softly. "I was hoping you'd find me." She walked slowly toward him, emotions swirling just under the surface. "You said you wanted to keep things private," she said. "Now my face is on 5 blogs. My inbox is a disaster, and strangers know where I work." "I know," he said, voice tight, "and I hate that it happened this way. You live in a world that eats people like me alive. I don't want that world," he said firmly. "I want this. Whatever this is, whatever we make it." She hesitated. "I'm not built for that spotlight," she whispered. "I panic when 3 people look at me in a coffee shop. Then I'll be your shade," Gabriel said. Elise blinked. "What? If you're not built for the spotlight, I'll be your cover. I'll be the wall behind you, the quiet beside you, the one who protects the part of you the world doesn't deserve to touch." The words shattered something in her, and in the ruins, something new grew. "I just wanted to go to a wedding," she murmured. "I didn't want my life to change." He stepped closer, searching her face. "What if it didn't change who you are?" he asked. "What if it just brought you into focus?" She looked at him, really looked at him, not the billionaire, not the business headline, not the man everyone whispered about, but the person who remembered her coffee order, who laughed at her terrible impressions, who danced with her like no one else was watching. And suddenly, she wasn't afraid of being seen, but someone else was. That night, after they shared dinner at a quiet rooftop bistro, one of his few secrets from the press, a storm broke online. Photos, leaks, ugly stories. Elise Morgan, everything we know about Gabriel Stone's mystery flame, old tweets, family gossip, a rumor about her old job. Nothing scandalous, but spun in cruel, viral ways. Gabriel's assistant called during dessert. "Someone's pushing this. It's targeted, deliberate. We think it's internal." Elise paled. "Someone's doing this on purpose." Gabriel nodded, jaw clenched. "Why?" she whispered. "Because someone in my world thinks I'm safer when I'm alone." Elise looked out across the skyline, fear blooming in her chest. "I'm not gonna be your liability," she said, eyes shining. "I won't be the reason you get dragged down." Gabriel reached across the table, gripping her hand. "You're not the liability," he said. "You're the reason I'm finally standing up to them the night Sky rumbled." And deep inside, Elise knew this wasn't just a romance. This was a reckoning. She wasn't invisible anymore, and someone in Gabriel's world wanted her gone. The headlines didn't slow down. By the time Elise woke up the next morning, her face was everywhere. Not her art. Not her work. Just her face plastered beneath flashy captions like, "From nobody to billionaire's flame. Who is Elise Morgan? Stone's girl next door. Real love or rebound? Sources say Stone's inner circle warns romance. Could damage his brand. She was a risk management problem now." Her phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Journalists camped outside her apartment building, shoving microphones toward strangers in the hallway. Her favorite coffee shop, the one with the mismatched chairs and friendly baristas, had turned her away that morning with a quiet, nervous apology. "It's too much attention, Elise. I'm sorry." Her quiet life was gone, and she hadn't asked for any of it. When Gabriel called, she didn't answer. Not right away. Not until the 10th missed call. Not until he texted her, "They don't get to tell our story. Only we do. Please, meet me." She agreed, but with a pit in her stomach. He picked her up in the same vintage car from their second meeting. No driver, no guards, just him, and he looked tired, like he hadn't slept. His usual calm was cracked, frayed at the edges. "I'm sorry," he said before she even shut the door. "I never wanted this to touch you." She buckled in slowly. "I know." They drove in silence through the city, past flashing camera phones, past people pointing. Gabriel didn't speak again until they reached the stone foundation building his pride, his legacy. The place his mother had dreamed of when she was still alive. A place meant to fund public education, literacy, and youth arts. "I had a board meeting," he said, parking the car himself. "They wanted to talk about you." Elise flinched. "What did they say?" "They said you're a distraction," he muttered. "That you've made me look unstable. That I've compromised the image of the company." Her throat tightened. "I told them they could vote me out if they wanted to," Gabriel said flatly. "And if they did, I'd buy every damn chair they were sitting in and turn the building into an art school named after you." Elise's eyes filled instantly. "You didn't." "I did." "Gabriel." He turned to face her. "I'm not losing you over optics. Not after the years I spent surrounded by people who smiled at my success, but couldn't name a single thing I loved." His voice trembled. "But you saw me before you knew my name." The moment hung between them, raw and unguarded, but it wasn't over. Not even close. Later that afternoon, as Elise tried to return to her apartment, she found two men in suits, waiting at the stairwell. Not reporters, not paparazzi. They didn't have cameras. They had papers. One stepped forward. "Miss Morgan, we represent the Stone Holdings legal team. We're here to request your cooperation regarding a pending investigation into leaks from within the company. Your communication with Mr. Stone has been flagged due to the media exposure." "What?" she whispered, backing up. "What are you talking about?" "You need to turn over your phone and laptop for review." "I don't work for the company," she said, shaking her head. The second man smiled thinly. "That's exactly what makes it unusual." Panic surged through her. She didn't understand what was happening, but every instinct screamed that this was no misunderstanding. She didn't hand them anything. Instead, she turned and ran. She ducked through the alley behind the building and emerged into traffic, breath ragged, heart slamming in her chest. She dialed Gabriel's number with trembling hands. He answered instantly. "Elise?" "There were men at my door," she gasped. "They said they were from your company." "Gabriel, what is going on?" He didn't answer for 3 full seconds. Then, quietly, "They weren't supposed to involve you." Her knees nearly gave out. "So it is someone in your circle?" "Yes," he said grimly. "Someone trying to push you out, make you look like a liability. The leak came from inside, but they want to pin it on you." Tears burned her eyes. "I don't know anything about your company's secrets. I don't even know what your damn Wi-Fi password is." "I know, and I'm going to fix this." But Elise had already heard what she feared the most. They didn't just want her gone. They wanted to ruin her. That night, she packed a bag. She didn't text Gabriel. She didn't turn on the news. She turned off her phone, stuffed it in a drawer, and checked into a small inn outside the city under her mother's maiden name. For 3 days, she disappeared, and when she finally turned her phone back on, there were dozens of voicemails, but one message stopped her cold dial from Victoria. Gabriel's sister. Elise, please call me. You're in danger, and not just from strangers. Someone you know, someone you trust. They're behind this, and I think I know who. The room spun. Because Victoria wasn't the dramatic type. She didn't play games. If she was reaching out, something was very, very wrong. Elise sat down on the edge of the bed, phone pressed to her ear, a knot growing in her chest. And for the first time since the wedding, she asked herself a terrifying question. What if Gabriel's world wasn't just unfamiliar? What if it was dangerous? And worse, what if she had just become its newest casualty? The old room was quiet, almost too quiet. The kind of stillness that presses against your chest and dares you to breathe. Elise sat frozen on the edge of the bed, Victoria's voicemail still echoing in her ears. Someone you trust. There. Behind this, the words clawed at her like a slow unraveling. She tried to think clearly, to process the impossibility of it all. Gabriel's world wasn't just uncomfortable, it was wired with traps, and someone had decided she was expendable. She listened to the message again, then again. On the 4th time, she caught something she had missed, a name, barely audible. At the end before the line cut out. I think it's Richard. Elise's breath stopped. Richard. Gabriel's oldest business partner. The man she'd met once briefly during a quiet dinner with Gabriel, where he'd shaken her hand like he was sizing up a problem, not a person. The man who had told Gabriel during a board meeting that she was bad optics. It suddenly made sense. The stories, the leaks, the timing, the visit from the so-called legal team. Richard wasn't trying to protect Gabriel. He was trying to control him. She grabbed her bag, stuffed her things inside, and raced to the front desk. The night clerk blinked as she handed over the keys, still trying to ask about the room when she was already gone. This time, she didn't run away. She ran toward the storm. Back in the city. She didn't go to her apartment. She went straight to the place she knew he'd be, his mother's foundation. The one place Gabriel went when everything else fell apart. When she walked through the glass doors, the receptionist stood instantly. I need to see Gabriel Stone, Elise said, her voice calm, but thunderous. Hi, he's in a private board. Elise didn't stop. She walked right past her, through the sleek hallway and into a large conference room where voices were already rising. The board meeting had started, and it was exploding. Gabriel sat at the head of the long table, face pale, but expression controlled. Across from him sat Richard, red-faced, waving a printed tabloid in one hand. She's a liability. Gabriel, I warned you, and now this. Richard barked. You let a civilian compromise our security. Do you realize the financial implications? Enough. Gabriel said coldly, enough. This woman could cost us. That woman has a name, said a voice at the door. Everyone turned. Elise stood in the frame, shoulders squared, eyes clear. For the first time in her life, she wasn't shrinking. In a room full of power. She was the power. I didn't come here to plead, she said. I came here to end this. Gabriel stood quickly. Elise, she held up a hand. Not yet. You sent people in my apartment, she said, eyes locked on Richard. You dragged my family, my work, and my privacy into your smear campaign. And why? Because you couldn't control him anymore. Richard's eyes narrowed. You have no place here. But you do, Elise asked. Because from what I hear, it was your assistant who sold the wedding photos. It was your contact who leaked my phone number to the press. It was your strategy to isolate Gabriel until he had no one left but you. The room was silent. Gabriel's jaw clenched. Is that true, Richard? Richard's face said everything. I built this company with you, Gabriel said, voice shaking, and this is how you repay me? She's a risk, Gabe. Richard snapped. She's not one of us. No, Gabriel said. She's better. He turned to Elise. I should have protected you. I thought I was doing the right thing by trying to shield you, but I was only letting people like him win. He stepped forward, took her hand. If you still want to walk away, I won't stop you, he said, his voice raw. But I won't let them break you. Not for me, not for anyone. Elise looked around the room. Dozens of eyes were on her. Powerful men and women who had dismissed her, reduced her to a headline, a distraction, a problem to solve. She turned back to Gabriel. I'm not leaving, she said. Relief poured over his face. But not because you saved me, She continued, louder now, because I saved myself, and I won't apologize for being visible anymore. Silence. Then a single voice broke it. Victoria, from the end of the table. Well said. One by one. Others nodded. The cracks were showing. Richard saw it too. He stormed out. Gabriel turned to Elise and whispered, you didn't just walk into the room. You changed it. Later that night, in the privacy of his penthouse, they sat wrapped in silence beneath a blanket on the balcony, the city glittering below. I don't know where we go from here, Elise said softly. Gabriel kissed her hand. We build it, one day at a time, and this time on your terms. I still don't like the spotlight, she said. Then I'll dim the lights. They both smiled. A month later, Elise returned to her work as a designer, but this time with a twist. Gabriel had commissioned her to design the branding for a new initiative through his foundation, a scholarship fund for first-generation artists and designers. It would be called Table 14. The press still whispered, still watched, but Elise no longer flinched under their gaze. She held her head high, because she knew now what real love looked like. It didn't erase you. It amplified you. And she had gone from the invisible girl in the corner to the woman who stood beside a man, not because he chose her, but because she finally chose herself and the world. It had no choice but to see her.